I think she got her copy too. Yeah.
We went out west several times together. So used to be first 5 days. So all over the flag. Because that's about it, but like that and more short. So
Yeah. So the
we have 7
before the and to be doing that, I'm going to the same as you go. I'm interpreting this like for another reason. But we did. Okay. There are ones where I'm
Finding space. She doesn't.
You have a number of achievements. I'm gonna ask them if I was sent to this. I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Morning.
Oh, you feel endings.
Yeah, so I heard this yes.
I'm not saying. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be starting momentarily. Thank you everyone for your patience.
We just created sweet.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our October hearing, and we're calling the meeting to order. Our next business meeting is Tuesday, November 12th at 12 p.m. as needed, and our next hearing is Tuesday, November 26th at 8:30 in this room. And now we will swear in the staff. Do you swear and affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say you do.
I do.
Great. And then you will go as you do the roll call.
Yes, Mr. Robertson,
Here.
Ms. Maniaci,
You.
Ms. Bartley,
Here.
and Ms. Rittler,
Here.
Mr. Pongoni.
Here.
Thank you. We just have a forum.
And then Miss, you will give the overview of the hearing format.
Yes. So city staff, that's me, will present the staff report and application materials. The applicant will then come to the presenter table here in the middle, be sworn in and asked to present the materials. If we have any registered speakers, they will then approach the podium over here. Once the applicants are sworn in and provided 3 minutes each to speak. And then after the registered speakers, the commissioners will discuss the case and ask any questions if needed.
Okay, thank you. And we will approve the minutes from the last meeting. Do we have a motion for all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. So we first have a continued application. It's 397 West Broad Street. And this would you like to present the case?
Yes, so 397 West Broad Street is located on the south side of the street, immediately east of the railroad on the site. A structure currently sits on the site, originally built in the 1890s for the Crystal Ice Manufacturing and Cold Storage Company, and most recently held the Spaghetti Warehouse. The applicant reports that the structure experienced a partial roof collapse in early 2022, to which a certificate of appropriateness was issued for roof repair in August. The owner received unsafe building notices from the city of Columbus in March of 2022 and February of 2024. An engineer's letter noted the structural challenges of the building that were recollected or observed prior to the roof collapse in 2022. A structure report from 2022 notes various observations of safety, repair, and maintenance issues. The applicant is seeking commission approval to demolish the existing structure and infill the space with compacted gravel to the same level as the existing concrete parking lot. The demolition of the southern property line wall is also within the scope of works. The owner plans to hire a landscape company to manage the vegetation on the west side of the lot and hire a last parking company to operate and maintain this lot for non-accessory public parking use. The owner intends to redevelop this property in the future using Rudy Nolan. Conceptual redevelopment plans show 2 L-shaped 6-story buildings with 235 units, 182 parking spaces, and a commercial space fronting West Broad Street. The applicant was last before the Downtown Commission at the September 2024 meeting, where the commission questioned the building's immediate replacement use of the parking lot and stated that more information is needed about the existing building structure and future redevelopment plans before a decision on demolition can be made. In response to commission comments, the applicant provided additional information, which includes an engineer's letter, visual condition assessment, and conceptual redevelopment plans. Submitted materials include an owner statement, insurance information, engineer's letter, 2022 visual condition assessment, proposed site plan, and conceptual redevelopment plans. And I'll just quickly run through those. So this is the owner's letter, and I will say the applicant submitted a few additional supplemental information, which I emailed to you on last Thursday, so that's also included here. But this is insurance information. I'm showing that underwriting was declined, insurance cancellation notice. This is new, so this did not factor into the staff report, but I wanted to include it since they did their due diligence. But there was a consulting structural engineer that left the site very recently, and then they provided this report dated October 16th. And he went inside of the building and looked all around, so that was provided to you. Oh, and then this is the previous letter from October 2nd by the engineers that were recalling what they saw for the roof collapse in 2022. And then this is that visual condition assessment that they brought to the last meeting, but it was actually formally submitted this time around. And this is a very long one, so I'm gonna skip through. All right, and then, oh, okay. And then here, this is a submittal from a preservation consultant, Randy Black. Here we go. It's a project synopsis and analysis. So he was just going through the project and the timeline of his involvement and his history on the building, and then how it relates to the downtown guidelines, and then his synopsis. And that was also provided last Thursday to you all. And then in addition, there's two sections of code. One is standards for demolition, 3116. This is typically applied for historic properties, but he's just giving that for context, not that it applies here, because this one, 3359, is what applies. This is from the downtown code regarding demolition, and the applicant can speak to that. This is the site plan which we saw last time, but again, this is going to be raised. This wall will also be raised, and then they're just noting that, you know, the footprint of the building will be infilled with that compacted gravel, and then the site used as a parking lot immediately, and then they're hopeful for those redevelopment plans in the future. And then this is the preliminary plans for the new ones are really, you know, really rough conceptual ideas, but they wanted to provide that. So we have some unit counts and programming of the site, and then some, you know, basic footprints of what the two buildings would be. So we have two L-shaped buildings, 5/1 with parking tucked underneath, and then amenity space, which is what that green area would be. You can see that there would be some commercial space fronting West Broad, and then, you know, going back to the site with the residential portion. So we have residential, amenity, and commercial. But these are the conceptual drawings. And then we have the unit matrix. So I'm just showing the square footages per floor, how it's programmed. So that's everything that was provided. I just wanted to go through that because I know there are a lot of pieces and parts to it. So after review of the downtown district code states that a COA should be issued for proposed replacement use of building or a site plan detailing how the property will be maintained prior to issuance of a demolition permit. The downtown district code does permit a non-accessory serving parking use. However, the design guidelines state that non-accessory parking lots are not an appropriate replacement use for a raised building. The guidelines note that maximizing the investment potential of a given site is encouraged, but so is preservation of existing building stock. They recommend that in cases where demolition does occur, reclamation of building materials for reuse is encouraged. Further, the guidelines encourage the commissioners to consider if the building is in a deteriorated state such that it cannot economically be rehabilitated, and if demolition would allow for new development, which in their opinion is of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area. The guidelines call for parking lots to be screened with a masonry wall, a combination of masonry piers and decorative metal fencing between 3 and 4 feet in height, set within a minimum 3-foot plant bed, or an alternative that achieves the screening of the parking. The guidelines also state that the tallest buildings be located along streets such as Broad Street and be a minimum of 5 stories. And so in summary, the proposed non-accessory parking lot replacement use is generally inconsistent with the downtown design guidelines. The commission will need to consider if demolition would allow for new development, which in their opinion is of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area, and or if a HAB's light report is needed to document the building prior to its demolition. Staff notes that compacted gravel is generally not a supported parking surface by the Department of Public Service. And staff recommends that if approved, the parking lot use be screened from the right-of-way per the design guidelines. And staff anticipates further drawings and material details on the conceptual plan as the proposal develops. Thank you.
Are the applicants here? And would they swear you in?
Sure.
You just been right now.
Yes.
You swear and affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And you, sorry, this is staff. I believe Jennifer needs to recuse herself. Welcome, Dayton.
Tell you about.
You swear and affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth.
I do.
And we say you don't even have an affiliation or things. Well, I think we've not. We need to, just for the record, your name.
I'm Robert Weiler, chairman of the Robert Weiler Company and one of the owners of this property.
Good morning, Mike Shannon on behalf of the applicants, the Robert Weiler Company, the Donald W. Kelly Company, and the Spaghetti Warehouse.
Morning, Doug Pack. I'm CEO, owner of PLD Capital, which owns Spaghetti Warehouse brand.
When we practice here, are you going to be speaking?
Yes,
You swear and affirm to tell the truth with the.
I do.
So we can, so you have a presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Chairperson Maniaci, members of the commission. Long time, no time, but perhaps long enough for, not long enough for you. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of what I consider to be my anchor clients. The Robert Weiler Company and the Kelly Company have been clients of mine for 42 years and going. And obviously, I'm representing the interest of Doug and their affiliation with the West Broad Street location. What we'd like to do today is we are mindful of the fact that you had a rather lengthy presentation. I did want to confirm that all of the members that are present here were available for that previous presentation. Is that the case?
The last eight.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that everybody that's here was in attendance then. Thank you. So we'll try to be very structured and timely. The idea is that Doug would do a brief presentation on behalf of the Spaghetti Warehouse partner to the deal. They also have a person to talk very briefly, Killian McElroy, about some branding that ostensibly pays homage to this structure. And then we have Moody Nolan as our architects, who have a very short presentation. And it seems appropriate to not mention that name without offering our condolences. Obviously, Kurt was iconic in Central Ohio and the country, and had a profound effect on a lot of our lives in this room. So after they did the brief presentation, I was going to go through the code analysis, and at that time also make available a couple witnesses that conducted the team inspection. Both Joe Lewis, our structural engineer, and Randy Black, preservation consultant, would be available to address any questions that the board may have. So that's the structure we had planned, and if that's okay with the chair, I'll give up the mic. As Jeff knows and some other people, I, as an attorney, when I come before a body such as this, I've learned, I had an epiphany many years ago that the inverse proportionality applies. That is, the less I talk, the more our chances for approval. and vice versa. So I'll keep that in mind and try to be to the point. But with that, I turn it over to Doug for his comments, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Morning, really appreciate the opportunity to present story of Spaghetti Warehouse, the past and the present and the future. I have owned the company since 2007. That's when my company acquired the business. Recently, we, of course, faced two significant disruptions to our business. Once in 2020 when COVID shut down, and 2022 when our contractor, Burns and Scalo, was performing repair work and there was a partial collapse of the roof. In fact, I'm very thankful that the incident occurred in the morning before the business opened. Our employees were there working, and they heard a loud thud sound and felt the building shake, and they had to evacuate promptly, and no one was hurt. Ever since, we invested significant time and resources to explore the possibility of reopening, but the building was basically deemed unsafe based on the city and experts. I personally spent months since then grappling with options to explore how do we reopen this location. We had to make a difficult decision to relocate this building or the restaurant to where it is currently on High Street. I know there's a lot of complaints from people saying it's not the same, which is true. And I don't think any new location can be the same as the original location. No new space can truly replicate it. But we did work diligently to revitalize the brand with a new prototype, ensuring its legacy and memories will last. This location also involves substantial reinvestment. During this time, I had the pleasure of meeting the Weiler and Kelly families, well-known real estate owners and developers in Columbus. And together we formed a joint venture to acquire this property. From our initial discussions to the present, I want to share that our conversations have always been about three key goals. Number one, to develop a real estate project that addresses Columbus's housing needs, especially affordable housing. Number two, aligning with the vision of the peninsula and the Franklinton redevelopment efforts. Number three, honoring the rich history and legacy of this building location, which has housed an ice factory and spaghetti warehouse for over a century. So our vision is to create a new living space that honors this legacy while inspiring future generations. And I'm not just some out-of-state developer. I am deeply committed to this community. So last year, we've been working hard with Moody Nolan to design an amazing project for this area. The first prototype, the rendering and the development design was just too costly. So we had to revert back to a smaller plan, which the staff showed earlier today. It's a little rough just because we had to pivot to a smaller project versus a 12-story building we initially reimagined this to be. We also recently engaged a local branding company, Road Creative, who's represented here as well. I've known them for many, many years, and they're here to help us to develop a name, logo, and branding that align with our three key goals that I just mentioned. I want to assure the commission that we're fully committed to incorporating design elements that reflect the location's rich history, including the railroad tracks, the eclectic antiques and fixtures such as the flywheel and the original bricks. They'll be used mainly for decoration and design elements of the new property. Additionally, we plan to utilize murals and LED digital wall to honor Franklinton, the oldest town in the state of Ohio and named after Benjamin Franklin, which is becoming a vibrant community with arts and creativity. So in closing, I just want to let you know I have owned several businesses across Ohio, including in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati. I am from California. I live in California. It's too bad there's no direct flights right now to Columbus, Ohio. It has always been a great pleasure to travel here for business and connect with incredible people. But I never thought I would be doing this, standing in front of this commission, asking for a demo permit. I do want to express how difficult it is for me to part with such beloved building that once generated so many memories, about 300,000 guests per year, and significant income to my business and my family. So I am here to share our partners' commitment to the vision I shared today. And I'm excited about the opportunity to create new memories in new ways. I'm confident that our new project will make a positive impact and contribution to the city of Columbus and the Franklinton community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Killian is the brand ambassador, if you will, consultant, and he'll make some very brief comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear this work?
You swear to affirm the testimony we're about to give today is the truth.
I do. Hello, my name is Killian McElroy. I'm here as a representative of Row Creative Union. We're a branding and design agency based here in Columbus, Ohio. We were brought into this project, as Doug mentioned, in a branding and design capacity, which really is to say in a storytelling capacity or in a history-telling capacity. Our role and our commitment has really been about exploring the rich history, as Doug articulated, and finding compelling and meaningful ways to translate that history into a naming and brand that befits and represents the property now and the rich history that it represents. So got a few fun visuals. Really what we learned and what we've sort of explored through here is that there is a lot of rich history, a lot of incredible architectural elements, and of course, what I'm personally very familiar with is the beloved businesses that occupy this property. So in short, that's a lot for us to sort of build from. And what we wanted to do is really take a lot of that inspiration and start to build something that communicates, that history in a way that does it justice, honors it, but also paints a vision and carries that conversation forward into the future vision of the property. So what we've come up with here is, starting to build off of the characteristics not only of the history, but also the incredibly unique location between two rails in its current location, but also something that is contemporary and we think fits within the evolving Franklinton area.
Excuse me. Sorry. I wanted to ask you, as you're working on these concepts and the branding, do you feel that it would be feasible to make some of the materials, such as, let's say, the brick or other materials that are on the house building?
Yeah, without getting into specifics, I think we're absolutely looking at all of the unique characteristics of the building and thinking through ways that they could be at least represented in the branding or storytelling of the design concept.
So that's open depending on what the condition of the materials would be or how the concept develops. He's branding.
Yeah, I don't want to speak to anything material, really just from a branding and storytelling perspective. Certainly everything, we're looking at all aspects and all of the unique characters as part of the story.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have John with Moody Nolan.
Better yet. Commissioners.
Do you, so I defer to Cody.
I do.
Thank you.
Was going to go through the concept a little bit here. You've already seen it, but if we can get back to what we submitted for plans. We'll talk through a little bit about character the size and scope of the project. So, as has been previously stated, we're looking at two L-shaped buildings, which kind of form a big U facing downtown. And the buildings pull back to the west side of the site to allow fire access that were required on the east side of the site there. You can kind of see between the eastern rail right away. And so you can see Gravity 2 there next to us, the Starling Garage across the tracks. And the taller building that's shown there was a previous conceptual design that will no longer be, that building will not be as tall. I don't believe it's for future discussion. So the buildings then look downtown. They've got these green amenity decks that are to be determined, but they should be really great decks that again get eastern light. A lot of southern light as the sun moves across the sky. They both sit on a podium with parking underneath. So it's a 5/1. We've got 5 levels of units on both sides. The first one, the northern one, we're looking south here. The northern one, you can see where Broad Street is, has 135 units in it currently. And it sits over 84 parking spaces. And the pink area, as previously noted, is some kind of commercial. As the market develops, we'll figure out what goes there, but there'll be something very civic and public there in that street on Broad Street to participate in the streetscape and be very public. And then the building to the south end is slightly smaller with 110 units, but more parking because there'll be a screen wall facing the street there, but it will not be commercial on that side. The right of way for the fire trucks, we envision as an urban alley park paseo. This up. So speaking to character and trying to get back to some of the character of what you see in some of these urban warehouse districts across the country, we're going to propose working our way into having, something that's very reminiscent of the spirit of Franklinton. So, a lot of murals potentially, greening it up. The paving for the fire trucks that can go through there and some of the cars that can go through there will be structured paving so that you can, grow plants around it and really warm it up. Even have seating and other things to really activate that space. So materiality from the existing spaghetti warehouse will try and work into this kind of feel and look to really honor the building, honor the history of the site. You can see this one here. That is the Domino Sugar Warehouse that's been renovated into condos in Brooklyn. You can see it got this great little urban park, passageway along the front of the river, lots of different artistic things that you can see are very reminiscent of Franklinton. And compare that to the existing building, what's there. I think a lot of people are pretty familiar with a lot of the buildings in Franklinton. That's our building as it currently stands. So trying to pick up on the brick detailing, especially at that street level and that paseo level, is the goal of the project. I think that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Pass them around.
Question. As you develop this massing model, or the massing this project, do you feel very strongly that they can be symmetrical and keep the same height? Or are you thinking, or maybe there's a possibility of exploring maybe on walls to be there's a little bit more height, and that maybe there's some variety or variation in this different actual design.
Yeah, I'll say a brief statement and defer to ownership. We did look at that. As Doug had stated, we had a very tall building on Broad Street originally. And as we ran the performa and did the numbers, it was hard to go to high-rise construction, which is why we ended up at a slightly lower elevation. But we do believe, 5 stories is in keeping with Franklinton. There's a lot of buildings there that are around that scale. So we feel like it's a good, fair way to do it. You're doing the elevators and the stairs and everything to support a higher building will be challenging for us, but I'll defer to.
Well, and I would think the whole building, I just meant a portion.
Just the Broad Street portion.
Yeah, just the way you see we have the, that would be more, I think that's very good.
Yeah.
Possibly a little taller to get more of a,
Over presence,
there.
yeah.
But, and I was just asking you if that, design is something, it sounds like you've explored it and the height is important to you because it's the part of the building, and then you've also said that, you're comfortable with the height of what's around it. So it seems like this is something that you've explored other options.
We have, and something we always struggled with a little bit too, is you've got Gravity 2 right next door, and we're kind of backed up to it. So this being a little lower, also kind of being a friendly neighbor, allows them to see over and keep their downtown views. There's a lot of positives to being a little lower, I believe.
I like the idea very much about that alley that's created to, I guess that's the east of the building.
Yeah.
Yes.
We want them to have character and, some very interesting pavement. With the artistic expression. Special.
Yeah, I think we feel like that's the meat and potatoes of, being at the street level where, all the art happens and tying to, all the projects to the south and, all the breweries and restaurants and the nightlife. And that could be a nice conduit, through to the peninsula and then back to all the stuff that's happening further south.
So you were, selling this last time as the, for the solution to housing crisis. Well, how many units are there, a percentage that are actually affordable, that are affordable be?
Again, I'm going to defer to ownership right now. We don't have an exact number. We've got 235 total units, and some percentage of those will be affordable. But I don't believe we have the exact number yet worked out.
Commissioner Leversige, I believe it would be a minimum of 30% of the units would be affordable housing. Most likely at 80% of the adjusted AMI, consistent with the downtown development policies for tax abatement and the like.
So it's a market rate apartment project with approximately 30% affordable.
Correct. So therefore, it's both market rate, 70% of the project, and 30% are the affordable housing component, as is called out for in the abatement policy that was announced last December and then kicked into high gear with the new zoning code to zone in effective August 28th of this year. Or the corridors for growth, which this is one of.
Yeah, if I could just mention to you,
I just want to note that the new zoning code is not applied to the downtown district. So we'd only be talking about the updated CRA policy, which is the tax abatement policy for this one.
Correct. Thank you.
well, we know it'll be more than the 20%, which is the litmus test for getting tax abatements. Our goal is to have 40% to 30%. I think I can say safely it's going to be a minimum, and it'll be 100% or lower AMI. The only thing preventing us from going to 40% will be the economics. We have to make it so that we can finance this project. And so I would say it's unlikely it's going to be more than 40%, but that's our goal. So the 30% is going to be a minimum, try to push to 40.
Thanks, John.
Okay, thanks, Commissioners.
Okay, Chairwoman Maniaci and members of the board, what I'd like to do now is first run through the downtown demolition criteria. I thought it would be helpful to also juxtapose it and compare it to the demolition requirement in the historic areas, unless you're not so inclined. But it seems that the code in the architectural review districts does afford certain other guarantees. And we wanted to demonstrate that we think we meet the litmus test under either scenario. So just very briefly, if we could, let's look at the standards of demolition that I know, Jeff, you're more familiar with than me, probably having served on the Brewery District Commission as well. But if I put my glasses on, yeah, you'll note that that's basically in the final analysis a balancing test where you look at a variety of factors. So you look at the historical significance of the contributing structure, And by the way, there is no question whatsoever that this is historically a significant structure. The fact that it's not included on the historic register is really, to us, not indication, a true indication of the historic value of this beautiful building. Concomitant with our commitment to the building, we are going to commit as a condition of your approval that we would provide the HABs report, documenting the narrative of the building and validating and confirming the permit history, the sandbar maps, you name it, that pretty much review that. And we currently have three firms that we are going to be getting bids for that HAB report. And that again is to pay homage to the structure. But when you look at it in the historic districts, it's a balancing test of that perceived historic structure, in my opinion, as it exists today, and balancing that with the replacement project's value and any other what I call hardships and what they refer to sometimes as existing circumstances that compel the demolition. We can quantify the replacement value in terms of dollars. This is upwards of a $75 million project. We can quantify the value in terms of the housing units, i.e., let's just say in round numbers, let's go with 250 units. If 30% are affordable, that would be 75 of the units. So we'd be addressing both the market rate housing structure as well as the affordable housing shortage that we have that is obviously unprecedented in this city. You also would look at any special conditions or circumstances of the subject building. In this regard, you have in your records the city's inspection in 22 when the roof collapsed, I believe in July of that year. For those of you who don't know, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was the Development Regulations Administrator for Columbus for 5 years and regulated the building code and the zoning code. We were, after emergency personnel, the first ones to be on site to secure the buildings and do structural assessments. Remember the Beggs building collapsing in the alley of the Ohio Theater, the Atlas building having a cornice, terracotta cornice fall off, things of that nature. But when you fast forward it to the instant case, we were able to get a certified inspection done on the property Monday of this week. We had a professional engineer inspect the building, had a civilian inspector, that was me. Also had Randy Black there, as well as a professional antique dealer who was familiar with the inventory of the property. When we conducted that inspection, a copy of which is provided in your supplemental attachment, Mr. Lewis did. Number one, Mr. Lewis actually inspected that building in 2019 in a separate location from where the roof collapsed in 2022. And in 2019, he determined that the northeast corner of the central building needed structural modifications to address severe water damage done over a period of years to combat the hydrostatic pressure that was causing load-bearing issues with that portion of the roof. So Mr. Lewis had a sense of history of this building prior to inspecting it, as did Randy Black, our preservation consultant, who had been in the building on numerous occasions, both in his official and non-official capacity when he was a preservation officer. I think it's important to note that as that inspection says, and as you would see and look casual observation of the building, that the north structure is 3 stories, the south part of the structure is 3 stories, and the middle portion is 2 stories. We obviously confirmed it was one structure from its inception in 1892. We have validation of the groundbreaking in 1892 because my client, Bob Weiler, was there for the groundbreaking.
Have you ever seen an attorney get fired right on the spot?
Uh, Randy's report was very helpful in identifying the previous users. As you guys know, ladies and gentlemen, it was the Crystal Ice Manufacturing Company in 1892. In the early 20s, it became the City Ice and Fuel Company, and then in the 50s, it was known as City Products Company. And it wasn't until 1978 that the Spaghetti Warehouse went there. But the inspection that was conducted Monday indicated severe structural damage, not only as a result of the emergency collapse that happened in 2022, the calamity, I should say. Obviously, with the state of the roof being such that no contractor would go on it to even secure the opening temporarily. The fact of the matter is for the last 3 years or 2.5 years, certainly almost 3 years, that building has continued to be exposed to the elements. The inspection showed that in the 2019 area that was inspected, the structural modifications that were suggested at that time were in fact not made, with it continuing to weather over time, literally. The hydrostatic pressure for another 6 years made that condition very perilous. We also determined that the water issues were pervasive in the building. When you look at the center building, its north wall has been compromised at the roof line, and that there's pictures that validate that that damage goes all the way down to the foundations. Similarly, the north wall of the south building, where it joins the south wall of the middle building, has deteriorated to the point that the structural damage is in the professional opinions beyond repair. The force of the roof collapse in 2022 actually caused the timbers to move. They moved in a northern direction and compromised other structural membranes, as confirmed by the report that was done on Monday of last week. All these things taken in totality indicate that the historic value of this building has been greatly compromised. And in fact, in a detailed report, the engineer that was retained felt that it reached the threshold where it was in imminent danger of collapse, and suggested that the demolition occur as soon as possible to take away from this public safety condition. When you look at the demolition criteria in the Downtown Commission guidelines, it's pretty straightforward. I would acknowledge a couple things, and I wanted to clarify a couple things. I agree that our construction schedule would be such that if we were able to do the demolition, let's just say hypothetically within 30 days, we would be hopeful that within a 90-day period, we would have an interim use of a parking lot, but only on that portion of the site that is currently used as a parking lot, i.e. the northern portion of the site. That area that is currently secured with a huge chain link fence that goes around the entire building, and then the southern portion of the site, we would agree that if demolition were granted, we would not add additional parking where the footprint of that building historically was, but we would like to keep the parking that's on the front portion of the parcel now. And in fact, from the, I want to call it the Fire Museum next door. I know it's a historic structure that's immediately to our east, right next door to us on Broad Street, uses it for parking as well. And I would agree with staff that it would be accessory parking by definition with the primary building there, but I do think the code would allow it on an interim basis. We would be hopeful that within 18 to 24 months, we would be able to go forward with the project. And to the extent you want to make that a condition of your approval, we would be amenable to that. Also, having had the pleasure for 5 decades of representing the Weiler families and the Kelly families. They don't want to put the commission in a place that would set a precedent in any way, shape, or form. If that is a seminal issue to this commission, they would agree to a condition that the parking use be eliminated and not be there on the interim basis. It obviously would be helpful, but if it's a sore spot with this commission, we'd be willing to make that concession. Also, in terms of adaptive reuse of some of the materials, we have a commitment that they would be perhaps used in design accenting. One concrete use of the bricks that we have been able to articulate and commit to is that in that linear park that runs from north to south, we think that that could serve multiple purposes. Have a pedestrian access path there that could be constructed of brick pavers from the material of the original building. We could also use it as a public art display area, not only for murals on the sides of buildings, but to get some of those contraptions out of the building that we all remember. There's a faint hope that the trolley car could actually be removed prior to demolition, subject to fortification of the existing southern wall of the southern building. The entranceway there, it's remotely possible to get it out without damaging it and not causing any safety issues. I should also point out for the record that when we met on site Monday of last week, that would have been the 14th, we met a person who had taken inventory of everything in the building approximately 70 days prior. This person who accessed the building for us got there about an hour before us, set up emergency lighting to allow us to make the trek through the building. And it's when they opened the building and added the emergency lighting that they were able to see that the building, although secured with a gate and boarded up and the like, the security had been compromised. And in fact, a number of people had been in the building and had done irreparable damage to the antiquities that were left behind, as well as the structure itself. They gutted all of the mechanicals, including load-bearing mechanical units that were added to the roof after obviously its original design. They gutted the electrical boxes. They tore all the copper piping out of the walls. They destroyed stained glass windows that had been mounted inset in the wall to get the copper piping that was behind it. They took appurtenances, structures, phone booths. It looks like they were pretty busy for an extended period of time looting this building of what they perceived to be precious materials. We are actively looking to see if we can identify where, if anywhere locally, some of those antiquities would have been distributed. But that harkens to the issue of this being a public nuisance. As an attorney and an officer of the court and the former administrator, it doesn't really matter what my opinion is. But I think the engineer that's here to testify, as well as Randy, could validate their professional opinions. I do think that it merits favorable consideration of this commission based on your downtown development standards. I'd be willing to take it one step further, in that I realize it may be a conundrum that, and Mr. Leversage, when you said this last month, I listened to the tape. I stopped the tape and replayed this 3 times. You said, we are not a preservation board. And my immediate reaction as a frequent flyer was, you could have fooled me, because you play great detail to trying to obviously preserve what is preservable and add that sense of authenticity to what we're doing. But having said that, I truly believe that we meet your criteria. We would go so far as to respectfully request that you consider maybe bifurcating your approval. That is, approving the demolition with conditions of the HABs report and anything else that you think is reasonable, including perhaps a limited term for the parking only in front of this potentially demolished structure, not there on the building footprint. We would give you the opportunity to review the replacement project in greater detail at a subsequent meeting if you'd be so inclined. So although the code anticipates that you're evaluating both upon issuing of the demolition permit, there is a big caveat there. And that's when these change from safety orders to potentially to emergency orders. Given the current condition of the building, the fact it was accessed over a period of time by members of the public, due to the fact that we've been unable to obtain insurance to protect our assets, so to speak, liability insurance, we feel that the commission would be well served to approve the demolition. And we've given you a variety of ways we're trying to pay homage to the building. We're not trying to set a precedent where somebody else could come here and game the system. Although the scale is much grander, with all due respect, it does remind me of the Main Street Bar. Even though that was a little cracker box, it was a piece of history from the Civil War era almost. But its day had come and gone. I think that was more of a prolonged weathering or demolition by neglect. In the instant case, a lot of damage can be done in a short period of time when the building is vacant and left exposed to the elements. And for those reasons, I did not follow my rule of inverse proportionality. I talked way too much, but I would, and I've already been fired, so I figured what the hell. But with all due respect for the reasons stated, we'd be happy to provide expert testimony or address additional questions and or concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody write down any questions for this evening? Is there anybody else related to the project that would like to speak?
Only if there are questions to validate what the attorney said as being accurate.
Just one more comment I'd like to make is we are with the condition of the property deteriorating. We are concerned about the winter coming and the snowfall. And so we would love to get the demolition done ASAP before the winter comes. So that would be my request.
Is there anybody from the audience that would like to comment on this application? And we'll swear you in as well. Here you swear trying to tell people.
I do. Thank you.
Yes, and can you state your name and
Yes, my name is Dr. Rebecca Kemper, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Columbus Landmarks Foundation.
I'm sorry, we just say
That is correct. Yes. And sorry, I think the Surgeon General is correct. Being a parent is bad for your health, and I broke my foot. So thanks for giving me a minute to flip on up here. The Spaghetti Warehouse, its history really dates back to it being originally an ice house rooted in the history of the blue collar industries that were in Franklinton that we are rapidly losing. We understand the complexities of the site and the needs within our community for affordability. And those are all due respect, things that are realities. But Landmarks itself is also not just a preservation group. We celebrate quality design for the future. We work to recognize places that have taken public funding or public support and making sure that they are there for future generations as well. So we are actually dual missioned. We are future oriented and past oriented, which a lot of people don't know. When we're looking at these spaces, what we know is that our street reputation within Columbus is not great. We have groups like the Geography King listing the metro area of Columbus, and specifically the downtown area is one of the 10 worst areas in the United States. And it's not just because of affordability, it's because of character, accessibility, and having a sense of history in place. And so we appreciate all the effort that has gone from between last month to this month to really research the history of the space. We're a little disheartened that we have a branding around the rail house. The site was not a rail house, it was an ice house. So just a small part to quibble on. But we do have the Toledo and Ohio Central Station just down the way. That is the historic property that was mentioned earlier. And that is rooted in its rail history. What was in place there were individuals that had, like, they were labor jobs and they provided a critical service throughout Columbus. So it's in the understanding of our history, and if we're having to bring that forward in a mitigated way, I think we need to be accurate, right? This was the most nominated site. We're here in Central Ohio, to our most endangered sites, and we just want that on the record. It had 3 separate Ohio inventory index entries as well. And so that is also something just to note. This is something that we are a little disappointed, right? We have over 200 acres of parking throughout the Columbus area. We have lots of space for affordable housing, and we desperately need affordable housing. We work with clients every day that own historic properties, and they are much less resources than the families mentioned today in testimony, and yet they don't let it get to this point, right? So we just want that on the record. So we appreciate, again, all of the effort to look into alternatives for the site. We appreciate the affordable housing shortage, but there are some concerns about what precedent this could set. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? All right. And then here, for the commissioners, would each of you like to speak about the agreement? Everything we heard, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go. I think that Shannon used was balance, and that is our criteria. Criteria is to look at the value of historic properties versus to the community of whatever is being proposed to replace them. Our precedent, our policy has always been to approve demolition of existing building when there's clear, consistent design, the level of construction. Clearly, we don't have that. But the concept that we all presented is interesting. When you talk about it, looks exciting, but it's a mobile home. It's not design. It's a long way from being design. But I also think one of the things that our guidelines talks about considering the building is in a deteriorated state such that it cannot economically be rehabilitated. That's a little different than saying it's going to fall down apart. I've renovated buildings that are frankly in worse shape than this one period from the reports that we got. But I think it's fair to say that the damage is such that repairing it in kind is not going to be a lot of interest. So I think we have to figure out a way to let this get done. That's one thing. Problem I have with that is we don't know what we're approving. We don't even have a drawing of the temporary apartment. So I think the question that needs to be answered before we make a decision forward is exactly what is approved. And this weekend has given us a couple of hints that we can put a time frame on, which we've often done temporary things. I think that's a good idea. I don't know about, I don't have a strong opinion about whether or not the floor parking that's already there, it's already been parked. But the question is, what are we left with and for how long? And I think
So we'll go around the table. So we'll hold that line to have that answer. So my feeling is very similar to the representatives where, first of all, it's just sad that for whatever reason, not to put blame on anybody or anything, that the building got to this point. That we got into such disrepair and that even a few years ago, I don't really know, if the deterioration slightly more, but even 2 years ago, I see maybe there was an opportunity to do some repair that was never done. So it's sad to see a building like this gets to this point where sort of a point of no return. But I think we've done a very good job, and we're very eager to demonstrate that for us. And also, I really appreciate the things you've done in the month where you have any property to be very sensitive to the history of the building. To that, to low cost housing. But what I'm struggling with too, is that typically when we issue a demo permit, we can also issue certificate of appropriateness for what is going in its place. And we really just have the bubble diagram. I mean, we do understand that you're committed to the massing, of how that's gonna sit on site. But we don't really know any details, and we know a little bit about the branding, but not really how that's going to, intersect with the reality of building materials related to a lot of other things. And then, but I am comforted that there seems to be a time frame. It does seem that within 18 to 24 months, it seems like you were permitted to start the project.
Yes.
So it seems that if there was going, if there were going to be temporary parking, that would be temporary.
That's right.
I just think would satisfy the guidelines of our non-accessory parking.
Understood.
Landscape, fencing.
Brick colors.
It has to be paved with. So I think how I feel about it is that I think I am receptive to the demolition, but I really want to make sure that this new construction meets a lot of criteria, that there's a commitment to documenting the building, to having some sort of interactive narrative or some type of narrative as part of the project. We can get back to the realize that we're going to become the landmarks to understand the accuracy of that and the authenticity of that. So, so I think for me, it's about keeping to each other, commitment and developing, getting that out of a schematic into something that's more like a design development. I also don't know if we're at, where the building is considered so dangerous. Or if it's something that, hey, it's pretty much a state that it's been in for the last 2 years, where it really should be demolished and excavated, but it's not in immediate danger. So it's just difficult to prove one before we have seen a more developed plan and design and the direction.
Okay.
So that's where I stand with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think I have much more to add other than, in my experience, 20+ years on these commissions. We've been burned multiple times, the plans changing or even falling apart between demolition, development, and construction. So, Bob, I don't know, Jana, you've all been on this commission for a long, long time. I'm sure you've seen the same thing. So I have the same question to you. What are we proving today? And what is the developer committing to the city and the community? Otherwise, I don't think there's much more here to say other than, for me, it's a hanging question, what are we proving? We like to say on the other side of the table, we don't want to set a precedent, but how do we do this for setting a precedent?
Thank you, Judy.
Okay, well, I, as everyone knew, was in favor of the demo, in favor of balance. When we talked about it from a historic preservation standpoint, again, it's not on the register, and again, it's historic to who and who values it. When you look at it in comparison to the need for affordable housing. So, we did ask for you to come back and show us what this is going to look like conceptually. I don't really have that. I have 2 buildings. I have drawings of that are aesthetically pleasing as far as really utilizing the brick and utilizing public art, and hope that that is what is going to be consistent with what we're designing and what we'll see in the future. The other thing that I really want you to consider seriously is what Dr. Kemper has said. Look at what the truly historic significance of this building is. It's not the railway. It's the ice house. So historically represent that in your branding. Because if you're going to pay homage to this building, pay it correctly and not necessarily make something up because it's next to a roadway. So again, there's hesitancy because I don't necessarily know what it is we're going to be receiving. I think there should be contingencies, based upon that. Never like parking lots, particularly gravel. I understand what you said, Mike, but we need it to be paved. And as you said, there's so much happening and there's so much vibrancy currently ongoing within the Franklinton area. I think that you should incorporate that into your design as you move forward, particularly with this housing. I am impressed with going beyond the 30% to look at 40% AMI. That is something that is very rare with developers, but it is something that I have always known that Weiler and Kelly have been moving towards, particularly in this area. So appreciate that. But again, as everyone, as my esteemed colleagues have already said, my concern, I believe it should be demolished. I believe it's not safe and sound. You do have individuals who are going into the building and not have insurance. So there's huge liability at this point.
Okay.
But demo versus what we're going to get is the question.
Well, it seems like everybody feels, there's like, good news and bad news here. It seems like everybody feels that no matter what the past was, no matter how upsetting this is on some level, and really we need to demolish this.
Okay.
That seems like we all agree with that. But we also, I think, all agree that what was presented today, the replacement is, probably not really there yet. We're very encouraged about the brand, working with the branding company. We're very encouraged about our sensitivity to it, but we want to see something that more. So I don't know how I feel about this. Would it make sense to, I mean, I don't know that this is even, if this even makes sense to come back next month with a more developed design? Or do you feel that that would just delay things and not be practical?
Have to, what you. What is it? Let's say the voluntary large. What's the plan? Is it all parking lots?
No. Let me try to respond comprehensively with the conditions that we would agree to for the issuance of the demolition permit. And again, the primary concern is the safety of the building based on an inspection by a structural engineer on Monday of last week. The city has not inspected this building since July of 2022. There has been a substantial change in the building itself since July of 2022, as is visible in the inspector's report. If you look at an aerial of the site and the tremendous damage, the gaping hole in the ceiling, it has allowed ongoing deterioration to keep on going, and it has caused new deterioration to the extent that the structural engineer has indicated it needs to come down. So I want to acquiesce on every condition that I can and would summarize them as follows. If the demolition permit were to be issued, we would agree, number one, that we would agree to a construction schedule, that if we do proceed with the parking lot, and again, we said we'd take that off the table if it's a big issue for you. But if we proceed with the parking lot, we'd make a condition on bringing a rendering to you that shows it's compliant with the downtown standards for the parking lot. I think I did the first parking lot in the downtown commission, complied with those standards across from the Catholic Diocese on Gay Street. And it was very arduous, even though it was a very small parking lot. So we would condition it on the subsequent submission of a layout for the parking lot. We would say that our construction, we would intend to begin within 18 to 24 months, let's say 24 months, from the approval of the demolition permit. We've also said that we would condition the approval of the demolition permit on us having to come back here with the renderings that you deserve and that you desire to make an informed decision on the final construction of the replacement project.
Oh, okay, so,
Be required in any case.
Correct.
No matter what we do.
Exactly, and we're making it clear that we know that eyes wide open. I appreciate that you want us to be able to take advantage of available funds. In fact, we have just been awarded demolition funds from the COCIC that took into consideration the subject property, subject structure, before those discretionary funds were awarded to this project because of the affordable housing and market rate components respectively. I also, my sharp legal mind tells me that I'm in a difficult position because with a 9-member board, I have, 4 voting members present. And several have expressed concerns either about the replacement project or in some cases about the branding of the replacement project. Our intentions were pure. The railroads were there before the ice house, believe it or not. And we thought that that paid homage not only to the site, but to all of Franklinton. We had discussed reutilizing to the extent possible building materials for the ancillary uses. We quite frankly have discussed internally of having a separate and distinct place to honor the history of the building where everything that we've been talking about could be displayed and publicly attributed to the proper sources. So the other thing that, and I'm just being very candid, okay, is that when I'm advising my clients on how to exercise procedural and substantive due process rights and how they get through the regulatory milieu that's associated with any property that's of similar standing historically, you have to look at the appeal mechanisms. In the event we get an adverse decision, we've got to know that legally we've established a case that would prevail on appeal. In those architectural districts, and one of the reasons I bring it up is that you have a right to a common pleas court hearing under a 2506 appeal, which is somewhat expedited, but in legal jargon, that's at least 6 months, if not a year. The founders of this commission had the foresight to give you an expedited appeal to the Columbus City Council within 30 days of today's decision. So I have to advise my clients whether to call the question today on a wing and a prayer and hope that you agree our conditions are reasonable and that we're acting in good faith and vote in the affirmative with the knowledge that if you vote me down, I do have an appeal right. Or do I hope and pray that the building, that there's not a weather event with 70-mile-an-hour winds in the next 30 days that according to our professionals would cause the imminent collapse of that building. How am I best protecting their property rights? By tabling something for 30 days that's going to continue the saga and still be subject to your determination. So
I prefer to continue negotiating, not be threatened by all the same. Yeah,
that's, let me,
We've all known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
It's reminding us that there's an appeal process. It's corrected in good faith.
okay,
We've all in this room done this for a long, long time. And the
Right.
process is simple. If you're gonna ask for demolition, come in with complete plans. And we don't have that today. So for everyone here.
okay, I understand.
We
I
need to build
apologize.
down. One more thing, please.
Yes,
This is a demonstration of demolition by neglect. That's clear. We all know that. You can see that we're going to support the rightful process of this project. So we don't need to be reminded of the process. You all are unprepared today, frankly, and that's the truth. So I agree with Bob. Let's negotiate. Let's continue to be partners here, but we don't need to be reminded of our process when you're unprepared.
okay, I
Could we just pause for a minute? Bob asked a very good question. What would we be approving today? And I have, from what I'm hearing from you, you know, we've been in person, from what I'm hearing from you all, I see three things, 3 weeks forward, okay? So number one is there's the site plan in front of us here. This is a site plan for a non-accessory parking lot use. And the code says that if you just do a straight approval for a demolition, 2 things have to be shown. Option A is you show the replacement use, which would be immediate. The immediate replacement use, which they're proposing, is a non-accessory parking lot, which is allowed by the code, although it's not necessarily, you know, recommended in the guidelines for a region. What we aren't seeing here is a flushed out site plan with, you know, the screening and all the things that the guidelines would need. So one option would be is you would approve the demo on the condition that they return with a complete site plan that meets the guidelines. And then this parking lot could continue for forever. There's no time restriction. It's not temporary, not temporary. You would be assuming that this could go on forever, which I know is not what you guys want. I don't think that's what anyone wants, right? So that's option A. It's this site plan and this replacement piece. Option B is we could not have a parking lot. We could approve the demolition and it would just be a vacant lot. But then they'd have to provide a narrative explaining how they're going to maintain the lot. Are they mowing grass? Are they shoveling snow? Are there security fences and, you know, security monitoring? That's option 2. Or option 3, which is in my 1 year of staffing this commission have seen, is that this would stay as is, the building would stay there. I know there's a lot going on with it, but then they develop a complete set of plans, which you're used to. And when you approve the new construction, you're also approving the demolition by way of the new construction. But they would be completely, you know, flushed out construction drawings really for these conceptual buildings that we've seen. So those are sort of the 3 paths forward, and that's what we would need to see in each of those cases.
So from the building to, that's a parking lot now.
Correct.
Is it?
Yes.
Yes, it's been a parking lot for a very long time.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, let me kind of respond with a few comments. Going back to the ice house, we didn't share this. I thought we shared it, but we actually spent 6 months working on a whole new project, as I mentioned in my opening speech here, 12-story building. Just want to let you know that it was my idea to put ice cubes on that property. Ice etched glass, ice cubes for a common area, amenity. We were going to have a digital forest. And so we've gone through that process, just want to let you know. So we are absolutely paying homage to the history of the site. As I mentioned, we pivoted recently because it just, unfortunately, the inflated construction cost, we just felt like it's just economically not possible to do that project. So that's why you're seeing just the bare bones instead of a beautiful rendering that we spent 6 months on. We can share that maybe. But it's, we just want to let you know that we have thought through all of that. The ice house, the railroad tracks, the trolley inside, the eclectic nature of Spaghetti Warehouse, what it once used to be. So just want to respond to that. And so we will incorporate those historical elements, absolutely. Regarding the nature of the building, how over time it's gotten to where it was. Unfortunately, we didn't own the building. Spaghetti Warehouse leased the building. And there was a lot of conflict with the landlord not investing in the property, unfortunately. And that's why we had to actually end up buying the property. There was just nowhere other around it. So just wanted to just make a comment on that.
Why we're here, negligence of the previous owner.
Well, it's, yeah, we cannot speak to that at the moment, because we didn't own the land, we didn't own the building, we just leased the space. But, we're about, moving forward, and what we're asking today is simply responding to your question. We would just like to get a demolition permit, because I'm not familiar with the whole process in the city of Columbus, but we apply for a permit with the building. We thought, oh, it's gonna be a stamp, ready to go. But then there's a lot more involved, and so we simply wanted to get a demolition permit approved. Parking is not, it's not a major issue for us.
Well, sympathize with you and understand, and don't think we all want to be flexible and work on this, but let me just, and we want to be positive moving forward and have some good ideas about how we can proceed. But I just want to explain something. Usually, not usually, almost all the time, when we issue a demo permit, we have to see what we consider something that is, we have to justify its replaced. Right there. And the drawings that we have to see, they don't have to be on the construction document level or in design development, but they have to give us a clear understanding of types of materials we would be using, what this would look like. If you're not quite sure if it's 5 stories or 10 stories or whatever it is, just sort of a general understanding so that we understand your commitment and what you have in mind. And I think we do see pieces and parts of it, today in the presentation, but certainly when we reviewed the materials, when we have the bubble diagram. So this is very difficult for us, and it's also difficult to know that you knew that this is a problem and you really wanted to get the permit today. So the level of what you would be conveying to us could have been up to that standard so that we could make that assessment and move forward. But that's okay. I'm not trying to say it's anybody's fault. I'm just trying to explain our process, and it's very clearly laid out. But moving forward, I'm thinking one thing, and I don't know if other people feel comfortable with it. One thing is we could grant the demo permit and then say we grant the temporary parking if it's properly screened for 18, 20 months max. And then we need to see that you get the building permit within 24 months or to start your work. And then that demo is, and that's sort of hard because you're going to demo before you get that building permit. But it's just maybe the conditions and that we take it on.
This is, Jenna, whatever conditions are set, I cannot issue a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, so they can't do the demo until the conditions are met.
Okay.
So if you condition, we condition approval based on, us viewing and approving the, drawings for the building, I'll have to wait for them to do the drawings for the building. And so, that's why usually demolition and new construction are put together. So some conditions could be, they could provide a house light report, what's there right now. Another condition could be is providing an updated site plan that meets the downtown design guidelines for the parking lot. Any kind of time frames, like this parking lot can only be here for 18 months or 24 months. We can't enforce that. So,
They've done that over and over again, but it's not, we can't put a time frame on it.
that's the truth though. What is code gonna do? Are they gonna go and rebuild the parking lot in 24 months? There's no.
They can come back and talk to us. They will.
We have found in the planning division that that's been problematic in terms of enforcement.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just relaying what management has told me about.
All right, let me ask you for the demo, tell me, I know the soonest you want to do the demo is like tomorrow, but you want to do it before winter, right?
That's correct.
So that gives you about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, 6 or 4 weeks. So do you think that you could show us, something, in 2 weeks? What do you think that's good?
Nice, nice speaker now.
So, hold on.
Oh, I was just gonna.
Mhm.
John.
So, here's the name okay, right. Okay, let's hear this one second. Hey, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm referring to my team. I was just trying to support the idea that we can provide.
About this. We could approve the demo, but you have to, bring us a plan. I guess maybe, I don't know, within a month of what you're going to do with the parking lot. You want to do the parking lot. Are you going to secure the building? And then you have to,
We secure it.
until, I mean, I meant the site.
Site.
For instance, I'm sorry, not the building, I meant if you're either going to have the parking lot, or if you don't have the parking lot, you said that you were going to somehow, have that site, that was where the building was, what you were going to do with it. And it wasn't clear to me what you were doing, if you were securing that area in some way, if you were feeding it, so you have to know. But I think if you want to do the parking lot, which is like we'd be agreeable to it, for let's say for 24 months, that you'd have to show us a plan that meets the criteria of non-assessment parking.
Okay.
And then you'd have to start the construction, we would say 24 months. And so that would mean you'd have to have it built within.
Understood.
Yeah, and if that doesn't happen, then that, what it says, if you have to come back and talk to us.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Right. Makes sense.
You're not gonna be able to beat that deadline. I see. I know why, if I don't see those steps, I mean, you know you're gonna do something with that property, you're gonna do it. Well, but I think this is the best solution, but hopefully it's not gonna be. So, the reason I don't think it's a delay, or both, if you will. I will make a motion that we approve demolition of the ice house building. Contingent upon eventual to staff, accept the site plan as it demonstrates what the site's going to look like lifetime of demolition. So then, the owner agree to provide, I'll have slide the documentation of the historic building, and part of demolition. And then we see, start seeing conceptual design updates in the next, I think, 3 months.
Yes, sir.
And I think when you have to have a commitment that you are going to do, whatever you do, you're going to have them, the building design is going to incorporate character or have to have a narrative. The Randy Backlab had a list of a few things, and were very good and. Okay, so incorporate existing building elements into the new structure. Now, I'm not quite sure if he meant, actually reclaim materials or just the aesthetic, but exploring that. And then developing a narrative, it's rather than in building's public space. And I think that's important. And I think there's many things you can do with it. You have some very creative ideas for your branding city, and you might be able to do something interactive. You might be able to do something outside. It might be children, it might be for the community, but there's a lot of possibility there. And then, like Rob said, we have slightly important, and to really explore the materials of that. And I also think.
But great ideas, by the way. Love all the great ideas.
And I think I apologize, I don't remember your name, the person who spoke from the landmarks. I think you should work with them. On these ideas. Sure. Collaborative that way. Right. Anybody that's with so yeah, I know that was long and I apologize. I didn't know how else to get it. But how about you two accomplices? What did you do?
Some stuff, I just want to make sure I understand, the motion. So would you move to approve on the condition of a site plan for either the parking lot or how a vacant lot will be maintained? So it'd be submitted to me for my review and approval. They don't need to come back to you all, correct? Okay, as long as it meets the guidelines and the code. And then the provision of a HABs light report, which I would review and approve and make sure it's fine. And then I put a third piece, an updated conceptual design drawings within the next 3 months. If that is a part of the condition, if that becomes a condition, I can't issue a COA then for 3 months because that timeframe is a part of the motion. So it could be a comment for them, but if it's a condition, I cannot issue a COA until all conditions are met.
Well, then I mean, I'm receptive to have it as a comment.
Okay.
If the other commissioners are. Okay, and then I don't know if, whatever the other things I said would be put in as well. I just want to make sure that they have they have a really hard commitment to,
All of those can be there.
7 minutes, so, yeah.
It's just any conditions that are made, I have to be met before I issue.
So those could be, I guess you could call non-binding recommendations.
Yeah.
That would be good.
And then the house light and the updated site plan for however they want to either maintain the lot or have it as a parking lot. Those are the 2 formal conditions.
Right, and just to clarify, when I said maintain and I didn't mean the building, I meant to maintain the site of the building. First, that or the.
Could I just ask for one clarification here? I don't have a position here. We suggesting they can come back with a temporary parking lot or a permanent parking lot that completely meets our standard.
I think temporary.
I think we authorize a temporary parking lot for 4 months.
Okay, I just wanted to get that on the record for you, please.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to the best. Really,
I agree. I think that's important. Loud and clear on our
Because that's not what we want.
That's right. That's
I just want to say that our guidelines don't, it's a non-accessory parking lot use, so that's what I'm removing for. There's no permanent versus temporary. So they're still gonna have to abide by the screening and all of those things.
We're gonna allow them to keep the parking lots as there. If they want to make it larger, then we pay them gravel. So have, like, wooden poles for lights. But they can't keep any of that for more than 24 months, because that is over.
I have to review based on the code and the guidelines.
That's
So if it comes back to me, then I have to review based on code and guidelines. And wooden pools and gravel are not in our guidelines, so if that's the kind of parking lot you all would be comfortable with, they'd have to come back before you all to review and approve that updated site plan at the November meeting.
okay. I think we understand. I think we sort of understand the delta there. And I understand what Bob's saying. Can we allow them to use the asphalt parking lot that exists in its current form? Was that acceptable, Bob? With appropriate security around this demolished site and anything else that's like the deemed, whatever, insecure, dangerous.
Thank
Is
you.
that?
Yes.
It is there?
24 months.
Yes.
Which again, we cannot enforce.
We can.
So just the same as that it is.
We can enforce it because these are some of the people that we've known for decades.
I
They
agree.
will come back if they can't meet that deadline.
I agree, but I'm just saying there's no way that I can legally make sure they come back. I'm just trying to be formal here, so.
What you're saying is if we approve the parking lot, it would be indefinite.
It could be
Unless it's
indefinite, yes.
They are actually going.
Correct.
The building.
Correct.
I swear and affirm that we'll come back.
But I'm just saying there's no way we can enforce that. That's all I'm saying legally. There's no way we can enforce that.
Like a potted plant.
But obviously, I believe they will come back. So I just have to be very clear.
I don't know most of that. For what it is.
The motion was the
Second.
parking lot, it's parking lot, that you're going to come back with a.
That's the fact for the plan of what the site is going to look like after demolition for the staff. The temporary parking lot, they authorized for a period of 24 months. They'll provide slight documentation to staff. We'll see what happens.
Okay, that's, okay, all in favor?
Staff.
Was there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Okay, we'll move to that.
Chairman Maniaci, I want to apologize to Bob and Jeff. What I was trying to convey is that if we truly believe it's an emergency based on our inspection, I had to evaluate based on what's here today. And I was going to try to stress that under the code, if it were an emergency order, the Downtown Commission doesn't have the authority to issue demolition permits. We were trying to build the case that from a building code standpoint, it was an emergency. So I was comparing the remedies only not in an attempt to threaten, but just to face the reality of, I was warning my clients of what we had to decide to go forward. But obviously you made that a lot easier by taking the comments and making them in a fashion that was acceptable. And I do appreciate that. And no offense was intended. And I thank you for giving me that opportunity to clear up the record.
It's a hard division to beat.
It's just, I know you're very frustrated because you feel this could have been avoided, but for negligence on somebody's part. I get that. But we're doing our best to pick up the pieces. And as a tenant, we had very limited ability to take control. Thanks to your guidance, we can now take control. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, actually, so our next activity, this is also for, Seaway, and it is, so it's Mr. Broad. So,
And we'll just wait for John first. Yeah, I'm sure late for the application for the Mr. Penis.
Way too many things.
Yeah.
That's why I put that right there. It's came up. That's great. Yeah, just a little personal.
well, I know everybody on it. Okay. It's 4 East Broad Street.
So 4 East Broad Street is located at the northeast corner of High Broad Street. The applicant is seeking commission approval to relocate the existing Mr. Peanut neon projecting sign and install it on the south facade using the mass to an existing structural steel frame. The sign is 16 feet from grade and 12 feet tall by 8.5 feet wide. And submitted materials include a site plan, the existing site photo, elevations, sign details, and mounting. And here we have the site plan. So this is broad, high, and then they're just looking to put it right here. This is where the sign would go, right about here. And then this is again the existing sign, so we're just relocating it, nothing changing about the sign. And then you have some images of where it would be located. And then how it would be mounted to the facade. So after review, the downtown design guidelines recommend that iconic signs be preserved and maintained, and that projecting signs are preferred in the downtown district and should be proportional to the building within 10 feet between the grade and the bottom of the sign, and the proposed graphic is consistent with the downtown design guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, can you swear me in?
Yes.
That the testimony you're about to give today, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Can you state your name and your affiliation
I am Rebecca Green. I'm working with Columbus Sign. And the peanut shop began in 1936 in Columbus as part of the Virginia Peanut Company's means of getting its product to the United States. And this, at that time, there were more than 100 different shops within the United States, and this was shop number 36. At that time, it existed at 5 South High Street. Later, it was relocated to 46 North High Street, and the sign was at that location and has been in existence for more than 40 years. This sign then was relocated to 21 East State Street, and now the new owners they have a new shop at 4 East Broad. The sign is a projecting sign. It is based on the design for the peanut shops that existed at the time of its inception, which that design dates back to 1914. This shop has been in existence continuously for almost 90 years within the city of Columbus, and it's been part of the streetscape of the city of Columbus for for at least 40 years. It's basically the same sign. There have been some repairs, of course, over the years, including the glass to the monocle that Mr. King has on his head. And now we ask that it be installed here. It obviously will be updating some of the structure to ensure the safety. Obviously, the wind load at that location is pretty substantial. There'll be 3 steel mast arms, and it will be placed into the steel structure there of that particular facade. And it will be over the sales area for the store. And we're asking for your approval.
The peanut shop is gonna be there.
That's correct. It is relocating to the first floor location at that building, yes.
Almost a large elevation. So is the worst of the agency signs day that
All those signs will be remaining. Will remain, yes.
I'm wondering, oh, I'm sorry, my new parts and the news.
I was thinking? Location, objection to it, is that the right order? That's be that.
It is 16 feet above, it's suggested to be placed 16 feet above grade. It is it's a 12-foot tall sign. Obviously, it's a little more than we normally see for a downtown sign at 16 feet above grade. My understanding is there were some structural reasons for it. I don't have the specifics, but can get you that if you want.
When I was looking at this, I too thought that, well, I mean, this was a thought I had, but it might not be practical or might not be the best thing. I was wondering if maybe it could be moved to the other side, you know, like you have where it is, and then there's the other side of the windows that you also have. And the reason is it seemed like it's so close to the canopy of the 8 on Broad, that it seemed to be a little bit in competition with that.
Right.
So I didn't know if you had looked at that location or had ruled it out, or maybe it wasn't wide enough for the attachment.
My understanding is just this was the preferred location for structural reasons, but I don't know if the other is okay. I can look into that.
And it's illuminated.
It is. It's neon. It has pink and red neon that illuminate the Mr. Peanut design.
Yeah, it seems like it would go on the other side, it would be less conflict with. And it's going also less. Hard to tell the different labels that. Gotta be structured, right?
One would hope. There is structure behind it.
Reviews of the existing sign is probably gonna it's like a nice looking sign. I think if it was at a lower elevation for pedestrian, I was just looking at that. I think it's a little less removed from the pedestrian.
But that'd be my general comment.
Any other comments? One thing we could simply say is that when we feel comfortable, we do it, but we would recommend to meet at the other side or maybe lower. Because we feel that that can work better with the surrounding.
Lower, stay.
Because, yeah, stay there. I mean, that was Jennifer's comment, and I see that. That it could be engaging, but of course, if we were on the other side, we could be lower, but I think that you'd have the benefit of it not being from these.
Is it because of the canopy that it's so much higher?
So things like, yeah. So, yeah, maybe if it was a little bit,
Yeah.
or the canopy. And then on the other side, you can't afford it because of the.
The digital time bands there, yeah, there's kind of a lot going on here. Fortunately, that's the thing I can right.
Right. Just.
Might be, that's the answer.
You mean where they have it, just.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of chaos of downtown, right? Like, there's sort of has to be a lot more chaos here. You know, it's like you bring the door a lot, there's a lot going on both sides of the law.
On that particular location, no, I mean, I have photos of its location on 46 North High, and there's certainly more signs then in the 80s than there is now. It's a substantial change, yeah.
I'll make a motion through this.
And all those in favor and opposed?
Well, thank you again. I appreciate your help. Thanks.
Okay, we have the next, two applications we have are right conceptual cancellation. And so this is 360 South Third.
Yes, 360 South Third Street is located at the southeast corner of South Third Street and East Mountain Street. It is the former location of the United Way of Central Ohio. The applicant is seeking conceptual feedback from the commission to demolish the current structure and in its place construct a 5-story multi-family residential building named Aspire. The Aspire building will have 82 units, 57 parking spaces, first floor amenity space, a client services office, and a fifth floor outdoor amenity deck with a canopy. Materials include brick veneer, metal panels, and aluminum and vinyl windows. The current building was constructed in 1969 as a part of the Martin Mohawk District. It is not registered in the Columbus Register of Historic Properties, nor is it in the National Register of Historic Places. The Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority completed the Section 106 review process and executed a memorandum of agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office in June of 2023. The applicant was last before the commission at the August 2022 meeting, where the commission expressed concerns on the ability for residents to access services and that the building footprint is smaller than the surface parking lot. They recommended to buffer the southern parking lot edge, provide grade separation from the sidewalk and first floor units, and enliven the blank wall on the east facade. Commissioners noted that there may be future opportunity to add to the building along the western edge of the site to line the parking. In response to commission comments, the applicant included a CMHA client services office to the first floor plan, included information on the Rise Center, included a 2-foot tall fence to screen the southern edge of the parking lot, included sections through the building and the sidewalk, and included a mural on the east elevation. Submitted materials include Rise Center information, landscape plans and sections, floor plans, elevations, and mural inspiration photos. We can see those here. So this is just a summary of what was changed. And then there's this whole brochure piece on the resident initiatives for the Rise Center. And then here is the site plan. Showing the harmony deck here. Some streetscape imagery. Sections of the street showing, you know, the grade separation between the first floor units and the sidewalk. And then you have the floor plan, so you'll see, here is the campus right here, that client services space right there. And this is moving up in floor plan. Then exterior elevations, which you've seen before. Here they added that mural space for the east elevation. And then some inspiration photos for what that could look like. And then after review, the downtown design guidelines state that maximizing the investment potential of a given site is encouraged, but so is preservation of the existing building stock. The guidelines encourage the commissioners to consider if demolition would allow for new development, which in their opinion is of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area. The guidelines also state that a COA should be issued for a proposed replacement use or building prior to the issuance of a demolition permit. Further, the guidelines recommend unique design expression, lighting that minimizes light spill, first floor transparency, high quality durable materials such as traditional masonry, landscaping that complements the overall development, and rooftop structures that are complementary to the principal building. And in summary, the application is generally consistent with the downtown design guidelines. The commission will need to consider if demolition would allow for new development, which is in their opinion of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area, and if the provision of a house light report is needed. Staff anticipates further exterior lighting details as the proposal develops, and staff encourages the applicant to continue to work with all applicable parties to both update and satisfy the parameters of the NOI. Thank you.
So, somebody do, yes. And then we have a little bit. Do you, so I confirm that the testimony we're about to give today is in the holds with the nothing but the truth?
I did.
And then can each of you say your name, affiliation, for record?
Good morning. I'm Sonia Nelson, Vice President of Resident Initiatives at Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority.
Bob Bitzenhofer, Vice President of Planning and Development at the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority.
Yeah, good morning, members of the commission. My name is Anup Janardhan. I'm with Moody Nolan Architects for this project.
Okay.
So good morning and thank you all again for your time today. So as Belkis noted, we were here just a couple months ago, and I think I'll turn it over to my colleagues here for most of this presentation. A lot of what we heard last time focused on our residents, so we brought our expert to go into much more detail than I was able to last time on the services we provide our residents and what we'll be doing specifically at Aspire. And then Anup will be able to talk about the design changes and some of the stuff that Belkis mentioned for the physical building to incorporate the comments from last time we were here.
So thank you for the opportunity to be able to share about CMHA's Resident Initiatives Department and the RISE Center. First, I want to share a little something personal about this project. So about 25 plus years ago, I was successful in achieving economic self-sufficiency. I participated in a welfare to work program through Job and Family Services and got a job at Nationwide Insurance. And as a teenage mom, to be able to have the opportunity to now be able to go to school and have a job that provided the benefits and everything so that I can get off of government assistance was wonderful. But I hit the benefits cliff and it was hard for me to make ends meet because I was now working poor. And so I went to the United Way to see if they had any supports that was available to me because all of the other programs were income-based that I no longer qualified for. So the United Way told me that they didn't have programs that were available, but they offered to me the opportunity to meet with Sharon Ware, who was over the United Way's Neighborhood Training Center, so that I can create those programs myself. And so it was something I never had thought about before. I met with Sharon and we became great friends. And I took tons of programs at the United Way's Training Center. I also completed United Way's Project Diversity Program, which trains minorities to sit on not-for-profit boards, and decided and realized this is my purpose work. This is what I actually want to do. And so I left Nationwide. I started my own social enterprise that connected me to CMHA, learned more about the work that they were doing in the Poindexter neighborhood with the Choice Neighborhood Initiative grant. And a position popped up within CMHA to manage the people part of the grant. So I said, this will be a great opportunity for me to be able to learn about how to provide supportive services. And as an entrepreneur, in full transparency, it was getting back to a every 2-week check. And so that has been now over 10 years ago. I will be at CMHA in January, 10 years ago. And we have since worked with CMHA to take what was happening from what we did from the people part of the Choice Grant to grow it to a department that is dedicated not on, to residents, not only in CMHA properties, but those that are around Franklin County, and also to have a corresponding nonprofit with the Rise Center. And so the excitement when I heard about CMHA purchasing the United Way building fit right in alignment with my purpose, because now, after doing the work with CMHA, I have the wonderful opportunity of providing the supportive services to the residents right there at that location that I was looking for myself over 25 years ago. So this project is extremely personal to me. I appreciate your focus in saying, where's the space and how these services are going to be provided? Because we got our office out of it in the new design, but they weren't going to be able to keep me out of that building anyway. And so we were going to use all of the space in that building to make sure that our residents had the resources that they needed to be able to be successful. And so as I give you the presentation, I wanted to make sure I shared that part with you to know that this is what we have in the Rise Center and the Resident Initiatives Department is years in the making. What will be there at Aspire is a concentrated version of what we provide to our residents across our portfolio. And as we look to the next slide around our mission for the department, I wanted to highlight our values of choice, empowerment, and inclusion. So knowing the history of the Housing Authority and some of the perceptions that people perceive of our residents, these things are very important to us. And we want to make sure that our programs and our supports and everything that we do has our residents in mind. And we do it in a way that is innovative, groundbreaking, and provides dignity. And so then when you look at the mission, I love the last part of CMHA mission, which is to assist residents in accessing needed social services, because that's us. And so I lean on that in everything that we do. Bob might get upset because we actually charge the development team for our supportive services because it's that valuable. It needs to be thought of at the beginning of projects. And then whenever if he tries to give me any pushback, I just politely mention it's in our mission. And so to have that shows the commitment to the work of CMHA. And while we serve over 40,000 residents in Franklin County, We serve about 160,000 between Ohio and DC. Our long-term goals for resident services is not only to be a resource for our residents, but our resources for our county, and then to expand to serve those and across Ohio and DC, as well as be an example for other housing authorities across the country. I'll show a graphic in a little bit that shows our complete housing portfolio spectrum. But our first priority is our basically what we call like our entry level and the heart of who we are as a housing authority, which is our subsidized housing. And so some of the demographics that I want to highlight are not to be shown as negative, but as opportunity areas for us to be able to support our residents. So the average income of a CMHA household is about $14,000. So the average rent that a subsidized tenant pays is around $250, $280 a month. So when you think about that and the cost of housing in Franklin County, where would someone be able to have affordable housing if that is what their income supports safely? And so, we take that in heart and look at opportunities to create economic mobility using housing stability as a platform. We have a whole bunch of children under the age of 18 within our housing. Rough numbers show about 19% of Columbus City Schools Columbus City School students live in CMHA housing. 26% of CMHA households have an earned income, and about 80% of our households are led by Black women. And we have about 48% that have head of the households that have a disability. So as I mentioned before, it was one thing for CMHA to recognize the need in serving our residents to create the Resident Initiatives Department. So within my 10 years at CMHA, for the first time, we have an executive lead and a designated department for specifically for residents. As a side note, that work has even expanded to now CMHA has a whole people division that's led by a chief people officer that also oversees resident initiatives, human resources, DE&I, and health and wellness. So as we continued to do the work and looked at what we were doing with the RISE Center, we started to get a lot of traction and interest in organizations that wanted to support, but was hung up that we weren't a formal nonprofit. And so we also saw that as a housing authority, there were certain groups and circles that we weren't included in while we were providing these services to our residents. Like we weren't a member of the Human Services Chamber. And so, we looked at ways to be able to better serve our residents and our community, and said, and through the direction of our CEO, of expanding to be able to serve not just CMHA residents, but Franklin County residents, we created the RISE Center. So RISE stands for Resident Initiatives for Success and Empowerment. And it was previously located at 1407 Cleveland Avenue, but it has now moved again. I just can't believe how things go 360 with me, but it's now in the Poindexter area. So we have located the main building to the previous Poindexter community building in the Near East Side. So that serves as our hub. So we have a hub and satellite model where that hub is located there on 240 North Champion, but then we'll have satellite locations across the city to be able to provide those services to our residents directly in the communities that they live. And so the next slide Oh, and just making sure I hit the pillars of focus is economic empowerment, educational advancement, health and wellness, and character and leadership. This slide is extremely important because this is another one that represents opportunity. So as we look at how we provide supportive services to our residents, it's important to look at the types of housing that we have through our portfolio. So the various housing types that we have through public housing, light tech, workforce, and market represent multiple incomes. We don't just serve, even though it's our priority, our subsidized residents that are at that first phase. We serve everyone across that portfolio, across that spectrum. And more specifically, we look to make sure that there is intentional mobility and supports as residents go from one stage of housing to the next. Once we have our residents, they become our family, and we want them to be able to, if there's housing that CMHA can provide that meets their needs, we want them to be able to move to that. So if a public housing resident successfully achieves economic self-sufficiency, and while they no longer qualify for a subsidy, we want them to be able to safely move into a tax credit unit. And as their income increases, now they might look at a workforce or a market unit. And then we also have a home ownership program that our residents can participate in as well. And so all kind of life happens in that transition. Childcare needs change, educational goals change, career opportunities change. And so we provide the supports to make sure that our residents can successfully navigate across that spectrum. We do not do this work alone. We are not a direct service provider, and that is by design. There are with Columbus being so resource rich, there are tons of organizations that provide great programs across the county. So our goal is to connect those programs to our residents and to serve as a hub. And one of the main reasons we do this is we provide an aftercare after school program, or a summer camp program, or a financial literacy program. Sometimes nonprofits may not be able to stay around and be that consistent provider. We want our residents to know that the CMHA and the RISE Center is going to provide those supports regardless, even if we have to change who those providers are. So in that, we have currently over 40 community organizations that are part of our service provider network. And in that, they also help with things around our service coordination model. So we do not use a one-size-fits-all. In our service coordination model, people need supports and resources at different levels, and we respect that. So some people just need access to a program that is just a listing, and they can go out, sign up, and do things on their own. Some people need to be able to talk to someone, to be able to determine what's the best resource for them, and then they can go and apply and they're good. Some people need more direct support, maybe home visits and an actual plan that might take some time to be able to complete. So through our service coordination model, there's an option for each one of them to be able to provide those supports. As you go through the program, the presentation, it details more about the services that we provide. The last thing that I want to hit on is our use of on-site providers, and that we have someone currently at 13 of CMHA's community. So our Sawyer-Trevitt community, we have the Columbus Urban League that provides supports for those residents. They'll be there at our Rosewind community in Linden as well. We have Community for New Directions at our Scholar House for foster youth. We have Salvation Army and Alvis at Harriet's Hope, our housing for survivors of human trafficking. So I share with you that those resources will also be available, not only that is our example of how we provide those supports, and the same example we'll use at Aspire.
Much is a very informative and important presentation, and we really appreciate it, and for this excellent project in context. So thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll have questions for you as we look at the building. So I guess we'd like to, I know you've been here before, and I think we've all seen this before, we've all been here. So I know there was a list of things that you said that you had changed from last time, and maybe you can concentrate on that, or anything else that you think is important for us to know.
Yeah, there were 4 specific things that we talked about in the last meeting. One was the site plan. There was a concern with not having screening on the south side of the property. So this design shows a 42-inch high screening fence located at the south side of the property. Because there is a visual on one of the previous sheets showing what type of, so we are looking at a fencing that would be similar to the top right-hand corner, which is more contemporary. It screens the glare from headlights, and this follows the downtown guidelines. The second concern raised here was about the relationship between the porches and the sidewalk at the lower level units. And I think specifically how it relates to the sidewalk and whether there was a variation in the elevations of the units, the floor finishes or the floor levels of the unit in relationship to the sidewalk. So the sidewalk around the building slopes towards the corner of Mount and Third. So all the units that are farther away from the corner will be raised from the street. So this visual kind of shows the different variations in the floor levels in relationship to the sidewalk. The third comment was on the east elevation. In the previous version, there were no windows that were shown on this side, primarily because it was within 3 feet of the property line. But this shows windows that are incorporated into the units, and there is an area that's identified for potential mural or artwork. We haven't finalized on what that would look like, but we have an area that's identified on the east side. And on the next page, I think we show some examples on what those could look like. I mean, we are working with the ownership to figure out what that needs to be.
So you're not, before we had talked about putting the windows on the east elevation, there was a concern where the property line is, but you feel that it's still better.
Yeah, so you're looking at the code, we're within 3 feet of the property line, and for this construction type, we can go up to 15% of openings per floor on that side. So yeah, this would be possible.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That really helps.
Yes, I think so too.
And then I didn't see it as one of the things that you would look into, but I think we had talked about it last time, that there's a parking lot, and then there are those units on the first level that go down to the parking lot. And I didn't know if there was any possibility of some type of landscaping or screening there.
So because of the configuration of the site and the limited area that we have outside of parking, our approach to screening would be to use some sort of window treatment for the lower units, either on the glazing or by using some sort of physical window treatment in the unit, not outside. There's no viable way to kind of introduce screening or planting between the sidewalk and the building.
Another thought, and if we about to things Wonderful, and I know that last time, I think it was Jack that mentioned that, you have Third Street, which is Prominent Street, and trying to maximize, the presence of the building on that street. And that's, probably not possible with your plan, because it looks like maybe you explored it and it's not possible. But I'm wondering if, let's say, that generator were either rotated or maybe moved from the east side of the property, that maybe it could open up that area, which doesn't seem to lose that much parking. Maybe it could become, like a green space or an outdoor area for the residents. And especially because it was mentioned that a lot of children live in these, in the complex. Maybe some type of an it might not be big enough, but maybe some type of an outdoor area, amenity area on the ground. I know you have one on the upper level, but maybe something down there. Because I'm just thinking maybe a way to enhance that southwest corner in some way. Because I know you're still in the schematic design, so maybe just looking at that and seeing if there are other configurations.
Well, there are two things going on, and Bob can probably explain better. So we're not in schematic design, we are further advanced because this had to go through.
Conceptual review.
Yeah, right, for the commission, but this has been through tax credit, and it has been awarded the 9% tax credit. So, following the OFA's timeline, we had to submit like an 80% set to them, 2 weeks ago. So that has happened. So we are, at that point where, what you see here is, we are at a point where the project has progressed much further than what is being shown here. We weren't come here, to show what was, the change from what was presented at the first meeting to the second meeting and now to the third meeting, and specifically address the comments from the second meeting. Again, I think at the second meeting, we mentioned about the owner's desire to have parking on site based on the number of units. There are 82 units. We are providing 70 spaces, and based on what they're seeing, there is a demand in the tenants they serve to have parking on site. And even in some of the properties that they're wanting to acquire, that's one of the criteria that they're looking at, to have enough parking, at least 1:1 per unit. So we didn't consider removing parking for this project.
Okay, that was just a suggestion, just looking at that and seeing how you could maximize that facade. That's fine if you need all the parking and it's not feasible.
This is for what you're scheduled with. Right, or
So to the commission. So we were hoping to come back here next month or the month after. So yeah, we want to get the demolition permit again. As the previous meeting they mentioned, we want to take the building down before winter because there's a lot of cost to keep the building running during winter. So our goal is to come before the commission in either next month or the month after with complete drawings, unless this is a place where you're willing to approve demolition only without seeing the final. So I think we have.
Totally understand.
Yes, I know that, but I'm just based on the first meeting. I attended the first meeting, but we can assure you that we are much further advanced than that, and we can share that, this week. So
this is a very complete document set in my eyes, and a great project and a great location. I think I'm fully supportive. I see you responded to the comments adequately, and I'm supportive.
I had one other question. You had, there was something, the MOA, we were working with the city preservation department. And I know that because the scope of the project had changed, some of the requirements or the aspirations for the MOA have changed. So I'm just wondering if you're still working on that and there's still an idea to have, I think there was perhaps light report at some point, or maybe within the building, the historic display, or, some of those features, if that's still something that you're working on?
Yes, absolutely, Commissioner. So the MOA dealt with two adverse effects. One was demolition of the existing building, and the other one was the new project that was proposed at the time. So everything that we proposed to mitigate the demolition of the existing building is still happening, still going forward. In the portion of the MOA that covered the new design, we committed to the building fitting in with the kind of eclectic mix of design around in the neighborhood. We committed to obviously getting your approval above everything else. And then the project that was before that, the MOA that we agreed to at the time of the MOA was the larger 12-story building. At the time we went through the process with the interested parties, they were concerned the building was too large. They would like to see it smaller. We were trying to move ahead with the 12-story building at the time, so we committed to keep a couple floors. The first couple floors would be close to the sidewalk, be more pedestrian kind of oriented, and then the higher floors would be moved back from the sidewalk as you went up into the tower. But then, due to everything that we discussed with you before, the building design changed. Now it's more at that 5-story level. And so we're working with the city, with SHPO. We've met with the city a few times. We're meeting with the city and SHPO on Monday, this coming Monday, to discuss. I think the consensus so far has been to amend the MOA based on the commission's feedback, based on where the project is now, and just say, we're still agreeing to meet the eclectic urban mix. We're agreeing to get commission approval above all, but this is what the project looks like now.
So make sure we get a copy of it.
Yep. Absolutely.
I just had one question. So thank you for a great presentation. I understand that these are satellites, the offices, and this will be a satellite as well. So are there opportunities where individuals may need to come to the RISE Center? Is there transportation that is going to be provided for them to do so? I know that you have a smaller footprint in this building for those services to be provided. And just wanted to know with everyone that you have that's going to be doing the wraparound services, if there will be transportation provided to those residents who need to go that site.
That's part of the service coordination that we offer in general.
You said, or I read that the center is moving to the near East area side, right? Well, that would probably be closer to for transportation.
Right, so we're all about convenience. So what somebody could come and meet with their service coordinator that's on site, but if they work at another location, say they work in the Near East Side, they can go to the RISE Center location there. They can go to any RISE Center location that we have across Franklin County. So it's whatever's convenient for them, but we make sure that we're intentional about providing those supports in that concentrated way at that satellite location in the office.
What percentage of the residents will own cars, do you think?
So even at our, light tech communities like this, it's close to 100%. Yeah. Senior communities, sorry to interrupt, the senior communities are the only times where we see a significant decrease in car ownership.
Well, does anyone have anything else? I mean, I agree with how everybody feels it's a wonderful project and so much thought has been put into it. And thank you for looking at the things that we suggested and incorporating. Really appreciate it. So we will see you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Next, I think we go through the conceptual application. And then here's, and then it's this whole plan. It's been locked down just like, 2 and 3, no?
Yes, so for this one, the final address is for the total speech permit. So we just have a site that they're reviewing, but, easy done.
For this spirit.
Yeah.
Do you affirm to?
I do.
So this site is located on the vacant lot bounded by West Broad Street, South Bell Street, West Capitol Street, and Starling Street. The final address is yet to be determined. The applicant is seeking conceptual feedback from the commission to construct a 15-story mixed-use building. The first floor holds a grocery store with parking decks on floors 1 through 4 and residential units on floors 5 through 15. Proposed materials for the grocery and parking levels include aluminum storefront, window wall systems, modular brick, and aluminum batten system to screen the parking decks. And submitted materials include a site plan, facade design, massing, first floor plans, elevations, and renderings. And right here, you have your site plan. So we have some street trees lining the site. Then you can see the entrances and loading docks for the parking garage. These are just some renderings showing different viewpoints of the site. And here's just sort of like a rendering kind of passing diagram. So your broad and spell. It's sort of like the back of the site on Capitol Street. So then you have your first floor plan with the grocery, parking over here, and then back of house uses. And then this would be the lobby and leasing area for the residential units. And have the mezzanine level. And then the parking deck floors. And residential still be to be determined. And these are the elevations for those parking decks here, and then the grocery store there. So this is Broad Street. This is Bell Street. This is West Capitol, sort of like the back of the building. Starling Street. So this is the west elevation. And we have some more renderings here. So again, Broad and Bell. Okay. And then after review, the downtown design guidelines recommend commercial ground floor uses and tall buildings along the Broad Street corridor. They also call for high quality durable materials, lighting that minimizes light spill, transparent and clear storefronts, art along blank walls, landscaping, and rooftop structures that are complementary to the primary building. The guidelines note that structured parking is preferred, so that they be exterior designed to minimize the monotony of its underlying structure system through wall mass and window openings and variation in color, material, and/or texture. The application is generally consistent with the downtown guidelines as noted in the basis table below. As the proposal develops, staff anticipates further details on landscape, residential floor elevations, amenity pool deck, exterior lighting, and material selections. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make a couple of, one clarification, and it's my error, meaning that we've got 4 levels of parking, and then the residential starts at 5, and we have between 9 and 10 levels of residential. So in my math, it's not 15, it's 13 or 14. Just to clarify that. Somehow I added 10 to 5. And yeah. Anyway, I wanted to point that out. There's a couple of points of questions that we will have as we move through this. I know we're in for conceptual, so I'd love to hear sort of general thoughts and feedback. I thank you for the presentation. I don't think I need to go through the plans again unless you have specific questions on it. But we're a project that's made up of 3 development groups. I am representing DCI. But we've all been working together with, and DCI is doing roughly the podium piece. Flaterly Collins is doing the residential piece, and Daimler is sort of involved in the whole overall development. The timing for the ground level piece, we want to be in construction by summer of 25. Residential wants to be under construction of 26. Just about getting, when we come in for full approval of, can we get an understanding of getting approval for just the ground plane with the conceptual piece of what's happening up above, or do we need to have full pieces for both levels? I think would be a point I'd like to get on top of just sort of general conceptual pieces.
Well, we've done this before,
Mhm.
so it's, we can't do it. But, we need a very specific plan of what you'd like. Come see us, Dr. Level.
Mhm. Right, okay. And so I'm on the criteria side for DCI. There will be another architect that will be part of the design builder for that podium piece as we move forward. So this complete transparency of sort of my role on this project.
I can clarify that we frequently start at that date.
Mhm.
That's what we get approvals to like a third of the building.
Yeah,
But it seems like.
okay. Any, did you have any specific questions on the submission? Do you want me to walk you through it or?
I have
Okay,
which is, it's very creative, we're using a difficult aluminum mat system.
yeah.
And for all the screening through, on all the sides of the
Mhm.
building.
Yeah.
And I like it very much, and I think it's very creative. I had some questions about it, but I also had a comment. I think, for me, just looking at it, when I look at the Bell Street side and the Broad Street side, because those are such prominent facades,
Mhm.
that I think we need to really, display a sense of permanence, or maybe I call it material. I'm just wondering if there are opportunities within the design to maybe introduce different materials. Like I was looking at the Bell side, and I'm just wondering maybe the columns could be a little thicker there, or something to give it on those first levels where you have the parking, more of a, like a foundation.
Right.
Stability. And I don't know if what I mentioned is the right answer, but maybe just looking at those opportunities, saying, hey, we love working with this aluminum mat system, but where can we start? Also diversifying a little bit and maybe incorporating that with the masonry and
Right.
glass when there's an opportunity to do that in landmarks design.
Okay.
Because I think it's just a little bit too much of the material around.
Mhm. Well, I mean, the appearance will be very similar to what was done at the Starling Garage. Was trying to keep somewhat of a consistency of that. So it is really kind of a brick column and spandrel at certain locations with the infill of the aluminum. What we're trying to emphasize on the Bell and Broad is that we want to introduce some sense of color, some sense of excitement, and that we think will be some sort of an art project on top of just sort of the aluminum band piece. We don't know how that's funded yet, what mechanism, if it's going to be like we did with the sculpture on the Starling Garage, or if it'll just be sort of self-funded by the project itself.
For instance, see on Broad, when you get past the colorful
Mhm.
mystery of the aluminum bat, and you have that whole area there, it's also the aluminum bat. So I think that's like maybe an opportunity to see what will that really be when you go to create a pattern.
Well, the idea, I mean, it might be a little hard to read with this, is that the aluminum batten system, we want to take and sort of mimic the windows as they come down. So instead of them being in this plane, it's sort of parallel, they would be perpendicular to the view, so give it more mass, and we could get some movement and undulation with that. That was the thought.
And I like the idea of bringing like the vibrancy and color and sculptural elements, similar to the Starling, and this part of the location that it's good. There's a question about the screening. It looks like it stops at like a vehicle and like height on that forward level. Is that the intent, or is it supposed to go all the way up? Yeah, whatever the level is on the elevation.
Oh, yeah, so it's stopping there, and we're using that to denote where we have amenity decks for the residentials up above. So, we're sort of giving it a cap and then the mass goes back. It might be a little easier to see in the 3D. We just sort of maybe go to the overall, go back one there. So you can see where we've got the solid, the solid brick pier that's happening up top, where we've got amenity deck beyond, but then we wanted to keep sort of the vertical notion of the windows going down. Sort of in that piece. That was sort of the difference between the two. The other piece that I'd like to just clarify is that while on the Capitol Street side, we think that High Water Alley is going to be an important vista. And if we go maybe to that shot there, that's where the residential is coming down and that tower. We want to make sure that that's at the terminus of High Water Alley, introduce some artwork there. And then we, in plan, have developed more prior to finishing other renderings that we're going to get a little more openness to each side. So the lobby will spill out, some other things will spill out. So it won't just be that those items hitting grade there.
So what you're saying is because you said there's the lobby adjacency and then there's support and other functioning
Right.
rooms, you're saying that those battens that are shown there
Will be most,
it's just a placeholder.
as a placeholder, we'll most likely have that glazing and it's more open for more pedestrian.
So, this side or something big more pedestrian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And also here again, like, in the back, you have the back, the aluminum back, but there, it's just, that will be something interesting to look on. Is that one color? Is that again, where you at certain locations, you're rotating up the battens? And I think that might be a little more developed in however you see it's appropriate, just so that it doesn't look like, back of house, but that's the
Right.
special vista as view as well.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
So the time frame for the criteria piece is we were going to get a package out at the end of next month for pricing. After we understand pricing, we will then come back for the real deal. Yeah.
So wanted to ask about the parking for the market that you have. It looks like you have short-term parking, and I'm guessing that is supposed to be for the grocery store.
It's open for the general public. It could be a quick stop in for the grocer. Or it could just be someone that opportunity to come in there.
So do you see, let's say, people using the grocery, people that just live in the vicinity, or do you see people driving in, and if they're driving in, are they using parking in this building, or are they using the Starling Garage? And if so, how are they transporting the grocery?
Yeah, so if we go to level 2, we think the bulk of the grocers will, well, that's a mezzanine level, but the main level there, that the bulk of the grocers will park at the second level. There's corral carts located on there, and then there's a circulation just for the grocer to use with an elevator to get up and down. But this is all on that new proposed transit location that hopefully we get sort of passed and everything, and it's going to stop right near here. So hopefully we can get folks from, around downtown to use it as well, not just people driving in to use it.
So the parking you provided for the residents, that's minus this level, that would be like for the public to use the park.
Yeah, well, this is a public parking structure, so everyone can use it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So those who are using the market from the public, will they have to pay to park in the structure? Like in Chicago with like Targets and Whole Foods, you don't have to pay? You can just use the structure?
I'm not going to be able to answer from the exact development deal. We are designing it though, that they will have sort of a token system. So if you go and, you park for a X amount of time here, you can use that to get out versus an office user that says, oh, now I don't have to pay for parking next door. I'll park at the grocery store for the whole day. So it'll be a time allocated thing.
like you have two amenity decks, but then it looks like you also have two other areas that possibly are amenity decks that I think are over the garage and Broad. And then I think there's another one.
So on this one, there's one on there's a amenity deck that overlooks Broad. And then on the south side of the way the building
And the aluminum
and glass for the podium up above, it's a panelized system and brick. Is what's the thought is.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, we look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Have the staff. And we can quickly kind of glance through that to see any questions.
It's a company with the, yeah, building full range. What? Or.
Oh, okay, yeah, so that was, previous staff approval that went through the Historic Resources Commission. And they had an emergency exit door that was originally approved. And then they realized they needed to switch out the type of door. They got fire, so they just switched the type of door, but yeah, that.
Well, the staff approved the application.
Second.
It's a big,
No, where's Jeff? I'm sorry, we need quorum to vote on this.
I'm still, sorry, yeah.
He left. He had to go.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he left? Okay, well then we can't vote on these, so we can vote at these in the next meeting.
Did we have the Harrison Smith award vote?
Yes.
We don't have many here. But I
Yeah.
think it's, you know, what we thought, so maybe last time we can vote. Will they be election?
Well, no, we needed to vote this month. I think what we can do though is, that's more of an informal vote, so far we have 2 responses. So if we can get at least 5 folks to respond to, I think Adam sent an email out saying, email me your favorite. And if there's a winner out of those emails, we can go with that one. That would be good. It'll be the end of November at the next meeting, and we need time to get the mayor to sign the certificate and get the awards printed and get them over, because the Harrison Smith Award event is in mid-December.
Do you think we have a business meeting? It's Tuesday, November 12th, and we could discuss it. With it. The business meeting,
That could be an option if we can get enough folks in,
Part of the plan, I think, was soon.
No, unfortunately not. We're bound by the state of Ohio for that one.
The other thing is, like you said, if you got the rest of the responses, maybe within a week or two, and there's a clear winner.
Right.
We could talk about it. I mean, I can just quickly tell you my things. But I would like the Tokyo project was in February Park and the bicentennial event. Because both of those, because I think that those really show, they really show equity, a sense of diversity and a sense of community, because that is a low income building that also is very sensitive to the neighborhood and really integrate film the neighborhood. And then I live right across from the fountain. It's changes have just been, the fountain's always been wonderful, but that the city came and tried to even think about how do we make that, how do we even address some of the issues they were having, and I think it's just phenomenal then. So I think both of those just add so much to the downtown and really make it inclusive and bring people together, and people feel like it's part of this, the city's part of the world.
I just did a downtown tour with President Carter. And rode by all of the pertinent, buildings and renovations. And Topiary Park was really the one that stood out, particularly because it's intentionality. Okay.
Well, I'll go with Lewis, since he's, done it before, and see if we could, resend the call for comments or what someone's preference is, and if an email response, if we have enough that go in one way, if that would work. Yeah, yeah.
Great. Such a big hole.
I mean, I think it's creating an epicenter for downtown. I think it's creating an epicenter for downtown. Really, restaurants, eating. I mean, when you go down there anytime at night now,
Yeah.
there are just people walking, which did not exist. So, and yes, they're blocking streets off, they're like, stop.
Okay, well, that sounds good, and so there's no old business, and the meeting is finally adjourned.
Yeah. Thank you, Mom.
Exactly, see what happens. Like, here's the difference.